record. And I'm just going to bring up the document that I created for the AMA here. Yeah, so this is what I circulated about the AMA. It's really to prepare us for the RiseX Robotics Expo next week on the 13th and 14th. Um, but it's quite an interesting story. It's like 10 and a quarter years ago when Rich Sutton and I went to the Strathern Summer Festival on a weekend, on a Saturday together. And of course, it wasn't known then that he was going to win the Turing Award, which is like the Nobel Prize in computing science. But he was still probably the best known computer scientist in Canada or Western Canada anyway. And so it was a great honor for me to spend an entire day. So they had spoken word poetry there at the Strathern Summer Festival, and I recited AI and technology poetry, and Rich Sutton commented on it, and we just had a great time doing that the whole day. And then we taught together in the course many times, and it seems very unidirectional sometimes. Like I present something and Rich counters me. Like when I showed a graphic of the um, basic goodness of human beings, he immediately said that there was no such thing. That goodness is not at all like allied with humans or biological beings, that machines are just as capable as being good as human beings are, and so on. So I short term, I felt that I learned a lot from that. I should stop using the graphic and so on. But then that same graphic, shortly after he taught me that this was a completely erroneous concept, was a part of a poster we had at the Cutting Edge of Transplantation meeting in Phoenix in February 2024. And it was so popular that in 2025, they just used a picture of that part of the poster showing the graphics for the basic goodness of human beings as the promo for the Cutting Edge in Transplantation meeting in 2025. And it was the only promo. It's not like they used other pictures. They just used that one. So it got me thinking that maybe there's more than one way to think about this. Maybe there is a potential basic goodness of human beings that we need to kind of gently nudge into being activated, right? It's not that it's going to be there always, but it's something that can be created in human beings. And it's something kind of worth celebrating when it is there. Anyway, subsequently, I gave an AI seminar in computing science, and Rich was very active as a, a person watching and listening to that, and said, as you say to performers, break a leg right before some big performance. He said that to me before I gave that seminar. And Brad Ferris, who I work with very closely in digital pathology was also there. There were a lot of other friendly faces there, but it was a really peak experience, in my professional life in a lot of ways. And it started me doing something which probably seems quite unusual, but I did it even today, every day from July 1st, 2022 onward. I've been recording the CBC Radio 1 News at either 3 a.m. or 4 a.m. to see how human cooperation is working. Is there evidence for it? And it's funny, since the the war, there's really only one time a year when the news is focused on human cooperation, and that's on the anniversary of the Ukraine-Russia war. They they start talking about human cooperation and so on. And I would say that's the only time. So the other days you can use recording of the news, some evidence for whether humans are cooperating or not, but they never actually use the word cooperation. But they do that on the anniversary of the Ukraine-Russian conflict. So I've been doing that every day. It's kind of the way the day starts. Who is it that does it? It's me and the cat. so so that's how it works. There's no one else in our house up at that time. That then generated the idea of the big challenges of the human race that artificial intelligence could help fix. And in 2022, I'd been gradually adding the numbers. First we had 6 and then 12 and so on. And in 2022, I had like 18 or something. And Marcus Hutter said, "You are so close to an all-inclusive list of this. And no one has ever created such a list before. So it's exciting to think about creating the first all-inclusive list of the big challenges of humanity that AI can help fix." And so I encourage you to just add other and unknown unknowns. And then you have a full list of 24. Yeah, so that's what we did. Now imagine if no one had ever done anything like that again. Well, it's just some strange and weird idea, but luckily that's not what happened. At UCLA San Diego in La Jolla, I think actually, they had a conference that had a published paper with 50 authors, all from the US. Every single author has a US address. So there are no Canadians, but it's a very impressive list of people. And in 2024, they put forward something very similar to what I talked about, the big 24 challenges of the human race that AI can help fix. And when I wrote to them to ask to use their graphic, they responded so quickly that I figured that meant that they knew that they had got the idea from me, and therefore they shouldn't try to not share the graphic if I want it. Yeah, it's a very nice graphic. But now think about that. This is something, the nature of which is that since everybody's thinking and talking about AI now, you would think there'd be thousands or millions of people proposing, what are the 24 big challenges of the human race? How are we going to get AI to fix them? And so it seemed really strange to me that now there are only two people in that playing field. There used to be only one, and that was me. Now there are two. There's this subdomanian guy. He's the first author of that 50 author paper. But it also got me thinking about graphics, because at the end of the paper, the 50 authors, they identified the name of the person who created the graphic. And of course, it's not one of the authors. It's not an MD. It's a professional graphics person, right? And it got me thinking that in a sense, graphics are really important. I almost wish they had made that guy an author, because that paper is much stronger with the graphics than without. Well, then something happened. Well, really kind of, I guess, three things happened that changed a lot of things in my life. But the first was that in my office in the hospital, it's kind of an odd trajectory the past 54 years, but I've been sharing my office with young people for a long time. Rather than as I rose in the ranks and got a better and better job, I got better furniture and a central office and better view and stuff. No, I, I ended up in a big room with enough space to have seven other people in there. And when we had that, I asked them if some of them wanted to move to another room. They said, no, Dr. Solez, we all want to stay here. So that that was that's a part of my career that I'm very proud of, that it means that a lot of the successes in my career come from ideas that have been discussed with the young people around me, and so they're very different from a lot of older people's ideas that have been discussed only with other old people, right? A lot of old people get together, they discuss with no input from young people at all. And so one of the things I began noticing very recently is that with this amazing tech of text to video, that it seemed like all of the outputs were off-putting. Like they give you a, a sort of vision for what the future might be, and it's uniformly a future you don't want, or it includes being able to do things you don't think people should be able to do. There's a whole lot of, but there were two exceptions to that. And so there were two people in this sort of arts field who were doing really positive, optimistic art about the future, and future fantasies about what could happen and what you could do that looked like they'd be really fun to take part in. Yeah. So Kelly Besch, Boesch, has really the best of those videos, where she's using these video production engines now, which are really amazing. You just put in a bit of text and they make an entire video from it, right? And she's become sort of the expert at that. And so I realized in this office, you can identify various parts of it that people who've shared the office with me are associated with. And the first of those, Rebecca Hu, was a first-year medical student who shared this office with me back in 2020 and 2021. And so she was sort of into steampunk things. So over here we have some steampunk lights and stuff like that. Musical instruments made into lights and made to look like steampunk. And she recently began her practice in family medicine, which is very much coming full circle kind of thing for me. I was very pleased to see that. Um, you know, when COVID hit, of course, nobody knew what the heck was going on. And the faculty of medicine made certain rules, like you couldn't shadow people anymore. But it never occurred to them that a trainee and a senior faculty member be sharing an office. So they never said you couldn't do that because they didn't know that they were doing that. So she and I shared an office during that long period where you couldn't officially shadow faculty at all. And you know, we got to know each other fairly well. Um, so I began thinking about my office and like it's been kind of a sightseeing mecca for a long time. People have heard about it, want to come and see the office because of all the art and artifacts that are in it. But it was sort of lacking themes. And it suddenly occurred to me that using Kelly Besh's art as a sort of highlighting theme here would really work well to at least bring some cohesion. Otherwise, you walk in and you say, well, there's all this interesting stuff, but it doesn't really seem to fit together or join, together in any way. So that's what I felt we were accomplishing. Now there's a second group also doing positive videos about the future, and they're called CowGow, COWGOW. They're not quite as good as she is, but anyway, so in those two rarefied playing fields with very few people in them, it it seemed to me it would be a good idea to sort of bring the two together. But you know why, why I haven't contacted Kelly yet? That is because she's doing such great stuff, and every video looks better than the preceding one. And I'm kind of afraid to jinx the system by suddenly butting in this creative journey that she's on, and kind of uh, trying to get her to do specific things for me. I almost think it might be better for me if I just wait and see what she's inclined to do, because it seems so good, her ideas. Yeah. So there's one other thing to think about in terms of this collaboration between medicine and graphic arts, and that is my Instagram channel. I'm very proud of it, but it's much better than anything I could create. And the reason for that is that singer songwriter Mallory Chipman is the person who actually runs my Instagram channel. And I think that again is another example, sort of joining medicine and the arts and creating something really valuable. Okay, so then let's think about some specifics here. So what I thought was that we can't just have these 24 big challenges of the human race that AI can help us fix. we should pick one that's sort of the starting point, right? And maybe one in health, one in medicine, and make that the thing we're going to work on first. So we had the idea of ending the organ shortage. So to go from a situation where there are organs provided to only 5% of the people who need them to a situation where we're providing organs for everybody. And this is how medical student Haba Mahal and I have been thinking about doing that. And we also thought this idea that I've written down here, I haven't written down any of the enabling technologies. So, it doesn't have any proprietary secrets. It's just kind of the bare bones of the things that we're doing. And so we had the idea of this en bloc xenograph to isograph procedure, making selective rejection work on behalf of the patient. Well, what could that mean? What is selective rejection? Well, what if you had a kidney that used to be a pig kidney and you decellularize it and remove most of the cells and put it in a human, and then the human cells start repopulating the organ, and then a kind of muted rejection could do the final preparation of the organ. Because the big problem in making stem cell generated organs, particularly the kidney, is the long loop of Henle, without which you can't concentrate the urine, and the kidney that can't concentrate the urine is not going to be valuable. And so the problem is that it's such a long structure that it's hard to decellularize and recellularize it and get all the cells replaced. So my idea was to not completely decellularize the genetically modified pig kidney, but do it such that you've removed all the cells except those in the long loop of Henle. Then put in the kidney in a patient, and the human cells would fill in the gaps, except in the long loop of Henle, it still has pig cells, right? But the pig cells would start to reject, but it might be kind of a gentle rejection. I mean, it's a somewhat anoxic environment. The cells are kind of struggling for oxygen as they try to do the rejection process and so on. So you can think of a lot of ways that it might not be very severe, but would be enough to gently encourage the pig cells to detach from the basement membrane, leaving space for human cells to, replace them. And within about 3 weeks, the rejection process would be over, and the previous xenograph would now be an isograph made entirely of human cells. So the idea is you'd be doing that in one kidney while the other pig kidney, the other xenograph, is maintaining kidney function. And then once the first kidney was done, you would decellularize the second kidney, wait another 3 weeks. But during that 3 weeks, the first kidney would be capable of providing the function. And at the end, you would remove the cannulas, and the patient would have 2 functioning isographs, just like normal people's kidneys, that would be good for another 100 years with no anti-rejection drugs, no immunosuppression required. So that's the basic idea. And what we thought now, part of what we need, some of you listening, Nicholas, is that you? Hey, I'm going to mute you. Yes. Okay. Uh, we need cheerleaders for what we're doing. And so not every shareholder needs to necessarily understand all the enabling tech. Some could just understand what's in this paragraph here about how we're going to use the two kidneys to completely replace uh, kidney function with an isograft that would never reject. They don't really need to know a lot more than that. And then they could help promote the idea. And when the shares become valuable, they would benefit financially without having to do any of the heavy intellectual work of solving, the details of how to make this work. So that then becomes one of the main purposes of this AMA video. It's kind of a promo for people who might like to be in this category of the 1% shareholders that would not sign the NDA because they wouldn't have to learn any proprietary information to understand the basics of what we're doing, but they could help promote the idea for what the company is doing, both in ending the organ shortage, so we would save 1 million lives a year that way, and also doing 23 other, equally important things using similar tech. And I talked about Rich Sutton in the beginning. Of course, it's his bitter lesson that means that it's not the case that you would need 24 different companies and solve these 24 different challenges, because a lot of the solving would be done by the computing itself. Computing algorithms would spill over, would cross more than one area of subject interest. So once you solve one thing, it would become much, much easier to solve the other 23. Okay, so Sargena, that's my pitch. So interrogate me now. So yeah.
Well, thanks very much for that lecture, Dr. Solez. It was such an interesting take through this whole journey. I have a question about this new kidney xenograft that you've discussed.
Right.
So I, I understand that we're putting in this just kind of this scaffolding of the pig kidney with the loops assembly. And then we would expect, I guess, the recipient body to generate the other cells to fill in the missing loop structures. Is that okay? I guess my question is, what would be the role of AI in that process, and how would AI be used to prompt the
Sure,
recipient's
sure.
own body to generate?
So I think it's quite clear to me that although humans can't do this without AI, other humans are not going to buy into the project. They think the person discussing it has no idea how it's going to work, right? They say, well, I'm going to wave my hands and AI is going to do it. So what you need to do, which I think is eminently possible, is to be able to describe how the solution is going to come, realizing that it's not humanly possible, but we know that AI is going to become much more capable than humans in the next 2 to 3 years. And if we structure the arguments so it's appealing to people in the outside world, and that's one of the purposes of this AMA video, then they would pitch in and help. And so big companies then, like Open AI and the others, would maybe pick this as one of the areas that they themselves want to work in, right? But we don't know what approach is going to work best, right? We know we need AI to succeed in this. Just to say it simply, humans alone are not capable of creating functional, complex organs from stem cells, but AI can, right? Or we'll be able to within the next 2 to 3 years. But it could honestly be like one of you listening to this Zoom call who comes in with a crucial idea of how to make all this work and brings in the ideas from AI and starts us with a working prototype. It's not necessarily true that it's going to build on previous human work. It may, but Rich Sutton's bitter lesson is that many of the greatest advances AI has brought about are actually held back if you insist upon always incorporating previous human work. Like in the AlphaGo AlphaZero um, progress that was made in 2016 in the game of Go. So it's true that AlphaGo used previous human playing of Go to create algorithms that became capable of beating the best human players. That's all true. But AlphaZero was a computer entity then that went back and trained itself just by playing Go games with itself without any human input, without any input on how humans play Go. And AlphaZero was able to routinely beat AlphaGo, showing that the incorporation of human data actually slowed AlphaGo down, made it less effective playing Go. We don't know that's always going to be the case, but it's quite intriguing to think with these 24 big challenges of the human race that AI could help fix. A lot of them may be solved not by using previous human data about how humans have been trying to solve it, but by something completely different that AI suggests that works much better. And so that but because there's so much uncertainty, that means it's a role for everybody. It's not just like Demis Hassabis and Sam Altman and the big tech leaders. No, it could be one of you who just happens to have particular vantage point or way of thinking about things that happens to solve this problem. And I think it's exciting to think about that way. And I think one of the other ways to look at this is to say, well, how do you know you can do this? If you realize that we're trying to do 24 big things rather than just one, right? Our chances of succeeding in at least one is much better than if we were just trying to do one thing, right? So you can criticize having these 24 big challenges human race AI can fix because it's too complicated to think about and it's too big. It's not too big. There's no such there's no limit on how big you can think, And if you think of spillover and cross coverage between what an AI algorithm that's fixing, say, climate change or human aggression or something might also work to solve, the organ shortage. So um, that's the kind of buzz that we want people thinking about, of how everybody can be working on this and be proud of the positive outcome. Like, let's say that we are successful. I mean, the cheerleaders among you, start saying, rah, rah, this is what we should try to do. We should end the organ shortage by getting input from AI and so on. And we have animal models in mind for how we would make this happen. But it could be that open AI tries to do this and fails. That numerous other companies do that too, but that doesn't mean it can't be done. It's just, there are different approaches, and things are going to be moving very quickly when we finally realize that, yeah, AI will allow just about anything you can imagine to happen, even though it's never been humanly possible before. But the idea is to give solving the organ shortage priority early on in 2025, so people already know that within health, it is like the one thing that you should focus on trying to do first. Yeah. So anyway, that's basically the idea. Um, so other questions? Uh, Nicholas, Daniel, Najme, anybody else have questions? You feel like you've come in in the middle of a conversation, you have no idea
I
what's
was just gonna say, I kind of feel like that, but I'm picking up what you're kind of saying. But that seems really interesting. I don't have any questions yet, but as things start clicking, I might I might put up my hand.
okay. All right. Well, we will try to create a favorable scenario for questions to emerge. Uh, Nicholas, what are your thoughts about this?
I'm in the same boat as Daniel. Yeah. Also, I apologize for my mic being on. I think I'm just in my lab setting, so some other people were talking. So I.
No, no, that's fine. Yeah. No, I'm good at muting, muting distractions. It's one of my skills, so it's not a problem. Uh, Najme, do you have any thoughts, or is your head spinning and you have no
Ye-
idea what I'm talking about?
Yeah, thank you for your nice presentation. No, right now, that's very interesting, like the thought, and yeah, it's very interesting, but no, I don't have any. I have to think about it more. Yeah, thank you, Dr. Soles.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So, um, what I'm planning to do, it's actually what I say out here. Uh, Shareholders would not need to report conflict of interest until AGI kicks in. The shares have real value. Now, luckily, I've actually talked to medical leaders about this. So this is not just my own quietly generated opinion, but that's what they said, that this is a completely personal, financial, and sort of time spending decision that the medical leaders here don't need to know anything about until the point is reached where like you're selling shares that are now worth a lot or something, or are possibly going to be influenced. But like in the beginning, like right now, shares of the company we're going to say they're technically worth $1 each. They might actually be worth less than that. I mean, it's sort of close to zero, right? Because this depends upon um, artificial general intelligence, or maybe even super intelligence, which doesn't yet exist, but very soon will, right? So, so that's kind of nice that I've gotten the medical leaders here to say, yes, there's no problem with them. They're not, suspicious about people here taking part in this, which is very nice. Because when I shared with potential investors the idea of having young people here be part of the shareholders, they really liked that idea. This sort of youthful theme works for them, and yeah. So anyway, that's um,
So, Dr. Solez, when you say us young people like becoming shareholders, like do you actually mean us? Like I'd be interested in um like partaking in something like this. And if you're saying that this honestly, I don't know much about like purchasing shares or anything, but when you're saying that it's less than $1 each, I'm sure I have $1 somewhere to spare.
yeah. I don't think when the purchase price is $1, you don't necessarily have to pay it, right? Because the person receiving the dollar might say, "Oh yeah, well you don't." Yeah, no. I really do mean that if some of you were interested enough to say that you would be willing to work to promote this, yeah. So I do mean the people listening now, but I also mean like the junior faculty that I'm working with here at present, and yeah, so on. So
Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense.
yeah,
Okay, cool. Yeah,
yeah,
I'll keep my ears open then, and then I'll definitely like see if I can get the word around as well. That makes
yeah,
sense.
yeah. So yeah, I think there's no lower limit of who could take who could take part. We're not doing it right now. We haven't 14 and 15-year-olds take part in the course. There was a 14-year-old from India who, with her parents' permission, got up in the middle of the night to take part in the course by Zoom and so on. And she took the exam, did reasonably well, particularly on Shauna's part. I think she was sort of big on the space parts. So yeah, anyway, it could include quite young people. Um, but they have to have some charisma, right? They can't be people who no one would pay any attention to, right? But I don't think any of you fall into that category. So yeah, and this is just a start. I wanted to get a little practice talking about this stuff before this robotics meeting. That's kind of an interesting strategy too. You would say, well, this is not robotics, Dr. Solez. Well, it kind of sort of is, right? I mean, AI and robotics are related, but yeah, so our booth there is going to have a lot of graphics of Kelly Besch's work at talking about the rarefied playing fields in science, medicine, and the arts and so on. Yeah. Anyway, so I think talking about it here gives me a bit more confidence for next Thursday and Friday, rather than just showing up there without ever having tried to promote these ideas to any other humans before we got there. Yeah, and Nashmi, who's listening, will realize that I can't be there the whole time on the 14th because we have a very important rounds session at 1 p.m. on the 14th. So I'm obviously going to be sharing time both here and there. So we're potentially interested. If one of you would like to go to that robotics meeting, I could pay your registration. You'll find that it's not very expensive. It's not like you would owe me this huge sum of money. No, and then maybe like during, let's say, the 12:30 to 2:30 period, when I really need to be focused on rounds, you could at least hang out at our booth so it doesn't look completely abandoned. You don't
Dr.
necessarily have.
Solez, I would be interested. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I would be interested in maybe popping by if you needed me. I have a couple of friends who I think I could definitely also be like, hey, you should really come to this RiseX presentation. And you said this is on the 14th, right?
Yeah, it's the 13th and the 14th. Yes, so we have a booth or a table there with posters and pictures and papers and stuff. Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
So
sounds good. Yeah. Mhm.
yeah, that's the other purpose of this is try to build up our team there. So Haba's going. So it's Haba and me, but she's a third year medical student with, clinical duties and so on. She
Mhm.
also will have a hard time being there the whole time. Um, so
Yeah,
yeah,
was there a particular time that you were like, I know you just said briefly, you said like maybe like around 12 o'clock?
so what I'm thinking is it would be useful to have other human beings,
Hmm.
not me, there between 12:30 and 2:30 on the 14th, because
Okay.
I cannot be there during that period.
Okay.
And
No worries. Yeah.
if they were there a bit before, I could orient them so they weren't completely like fish out of water. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I definitely be interested if you wanted me to like I can definitely probably be there. My schedule looks free for the Friday.
Yeah.
So yeah, just let me know and then maybe after this after class today I can like send you an email and organize something to be there. And I'll be there early too, so I'm not like a fish out of water with no idea of what's happening. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, and see that the possibility of a bad outcome is almost zero. I think because when people discover what we're up to, we're so different from everybody else who's there.
yeah, right.
Wow, is that really what you're doing? Yeah. So
Okay, cool. Okay,
yeah,
perfect. I'll send you an email. And then I'm sure I can probably like get one of my friends to join me there and like come by and ask me questions and also try to like facilitate engagement as well. So yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
sure. No, that sounds absolutely wonderful.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, so that was what I was hoping to make happen. Well, I think we could probably wrap this up. Does anyone else have any questions or comments or anything? Um, but I think it'll be a pretty popular video, you guys. You've done well. We need animation in the audience, and we got that today. So anyway, thank you very much for coming, and yeah, and Daniel, it would be great to see you and your friends at the robotics meeting. Yeah, cool. Okay, thank you everybody very, very much for coming to the AMA. Yeah. So I'm going to stop sharing now. Okay. Okay, great. Thank you.